Robert De Niro is once again making headlines, but this time, the controversy isn't coming from a movie set. After another major Hollywood project involving the actor was reportedly shelved, De Niro has now taken aim at Donald Trump, Trump supporters, and the current state of Hollywood in a speech that is already fueling another wave of backlash. But here's the bigger question. Did De Niro actually explain why his project disappeared, or did he simply find another political target to blame? And with the 2026 midterm elections getting closer, this may only be the beginning of another wave of Hollywood celebrities stepping into the political spotlight. Before we get into everything De Niro said and why it's causing so much discussion, make sure you subscribe to SubiiVerse so you don't miss our next Hollywood update. Over the past several weeks, we've seen a growing number of Hollywood personalities becoming increasingly involved in political rallies, protests, and public political commentary. And honestly, the timing shouldn't be surprising. We're heading deeper into a midterm election year, and if history is any indication, the closer we get to November, the more celebrities we're likely to see becoming politically active. We saw a similar pattern in 2024, particularly during the final months leading into the election. As September and October approached, Hollywood personalities became increasingly vocal, and that activity continued right up until the election itself. Now we're seeing that cycle begin again, and one of the biggest names stepping back into the spotlight is Robert De Niro. The actor recently appeared at a political rally in New York City, where he delivered a lengthy attack on the current administration and connected the political climate to what he believes is happening throughout Hollywood. But there's an interesting detail surrounding De Niro's latest comments. They come shortly after a major project connected to the actor was reportedly scrapped by Sony Pictures. The project was expected to be a political thriller featuring De Niro in the role of a fictional president. It was also reportedly envisioned as a spiritual successor of sorts to the political thriller series 0 Day, which De Niro had previously been involved with. The project is no longer moving forward, and instead of simply discussing the business reasons behind its cancellation, De Niro used his appearance to connect the situation to the broader political environment, and that's where things became much more heated. During the rally, De Niro argued that Donald Trump and his administration were contributing to what he described as the decline of cinema. He claimed that studios have become increasingly hesitant to produce political thrillers, dramas, and documentaries because they're worried about how fictional political characters could be interpreted by audiences. De Niro's argument was essentially that Hollywood has become more cautious because of the current political climate. But he didn't stop there. He also launched into an attack on Trump supporters and the MAGA movement, blaming them for what he sees as the increasingly hostile environment surrounding political entertainment. De Niro argued that some of his own projects have been affected by what he considers unfair treatment and suggested that political pressure is partly responsible for studios becoming more hesitant to take risks. He also claimed that filmmakers are now worried about creating fictional presidents who might be interpreted as versions of Donald Trump. And according to De Niro, that fear is damaging the entire entertainment industry. He described the situation as a threat to Hollywood and argued that people need to push back against what he sees as political extremism before it becomes even more influential. From there, his speech turned directly toward the upcoming midterm elections. De Niro encouraged his audience to support Democratic candidates and argued that Democrats need to regain control of Congress in order to restore what he considers political normalcy. He also claimed that actors have increasingly lost their ability to speak freely because their comments can be interpreted through political narratives they disagree with. In his view, that's another reason studios are becoming more reluctant to release overtly political entertainment. But this is where the criticism of De Niro really begins, because instead of separating the business decisions of a Hollywood studio from his political beliefs, De Niro appears to be connecting the two. And critics are asking a very simple question. Where is the actual evidence that Trump's administration caused Sony to cancel this specific project? A movie can disappear for dozens of reasons. A studio can change its strategy. A script can be rewritten. Financing can fall apart. Production costs can become too high. Executives can decide that the timing isn't right. A project can simply stop making financial sense. That's Hollywood. And none of those possibilities automatically prove that a political administration was responsible. Yet De Niro's argument places a significant amount of responsibility on the current political environment. That's why his comments have generated so much criticism. And this isn't the first time De Niro has publicly blamed political opponents for problems facing the entertainment industry. His critics argue that whenever one of his projects doesn't work out, he frequently shifts the discussion toward politics rather than focusing on the complicated business decisions that happen behind the scenes in Hollywood. That's especially relevant here because the Sony project had been discussed for months as something De Niro wanted to pursue after his experience with 0 Day. The idea was reportedly to take a similar political thriller concept and develop it as a feature film. but now that project is off the table. And De Niro has once again turned the conversation toward Trump and his supporters. He also criticized the Trump administration over its opposition to DEI initiatives, describing diversity, equity, and inclusion as an important part of the entertainment industry. According to De Niro, the political shift in Washington is contributing to the disappearance of political commentary from film and television. He believes actors are feeling the consequences, and he argued that audiences who value their work are feeling them as well. Whether you agree with De Niro's politics or not, there's another interesting issue here. The closer we get to the 2026 midterms, the more likely it is that we're going to hear from other major Hollywood names. And if the pattern continues, De Niro may be far from the last celebrity to enter this political fight. Names like Tom Hanks, George Clooney, Jane Fonda, and Julia Roberts have all been part of Hollywood's broader political conversation at different points, and we could see many more actors, comedians, directors, producers, and other entertainment figures becoming increasingly vocal as election season approaches. That's almost inevitable. But there is a downside for celebrities when they become heavily associated with political activism, and it has nothing to do with whether audiences agree with them. It's about something I would call the illusion of the actor. Think about someone like Robert De Niro. For decades, audiences watched him as characters completely separate from the real person. You watch Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Casino, or The Godfather Part 2, and you're watching the character. You're not necessarily thinking about Robert De Niro's current political opinions. But when an actor becomes extremely outspoken outside of their work, that separation can become harder for some viewers. Suddenly, instead of seeing the character, some people start thinking about the celebrity behind the performance. And that can completely change how certain audiences experience older movies. The interesting part is that those films haven't changed. The performances haven't changed. The characters haven't changed. But the audience member's perception of the person behind them can change. That's why celebrity political activism can have an unexpected effect on an actor's legacy. It's not necessarily about whether someone has the right to express political opinions. They obviously do. It's about whether constantly bringing those opinions into the public spotlight changes the way audiences connect with their work. And with the 2026 election season approaching, we're probably going to see much more of this. Robert De Niro has already made his position extremely clear. The question now is whether other Hollywood stars will follow him back into the political spotlight and whether audiences will respond differently this time around. Because as we get closer to November, the political commentary from Hollywood is probably only going to get louder. And that's exactly where this story becomes even more interesting. What do you think about Robert De Niro's latest comments? Do you think Hollywood studios are genuinely becoming more cautious about political movies because of the current political climate? Or are there much bigger business reasons behind projects like this being canceled? Let me know what you think in the comments.